Welcome to another week in advance. How you doing tonight, Christopher?
Really great. How are things there in sunny and dry California?
We're getting some rain, and we're pretty happy about that. And we're stepping into one of the greatest weeks to see what happens, I'd say, in the astrology. And it's also your birthday in the middle of this process, so happy birthday.
Well, thank you ever so much. It's going to be an interesting solar return this year. It seems like the universe is kind of lining up with a big reading for me, so I'm feeling rather upbeat. And it's going to be interesting to see how this next week does play out, because I feel like it is a spark. You know, it's a launch point. And I think for a lot of people, they're going to feel like all of this bogged down sedentary energy is all of a sudden going to start to clear. And you know, if you're not ready, if you're not prepared, it's going to be kind of like being at a rodeo and being on the bucking bronco.
Yeah, and before it even bucks, you know, we just have had to get there. Coming into this Friday with a new moon, with Jupiter trining it, that's a powerful full moon, and there's new moon, and there's definitely something unique about this one because it's a perfect trine to Jupiter. We usually, you know, see the Sun and Jupiter trine with usually not a lot of aspects, and you would usually say as an astrologer that's a big aspect. But to start off this bucking bronco, like you say, it's revolutionary. It's a new beginning with a big outlet, a big new door to open. And even though there's so many planets ready to turn offline here and really, you know, turn retrograde, I still think that these are new portals opening. There's a new future on the horizon for all of us. There's a lot of karma clearing. And we've also got Mercury coming out of retrograde on this Friday.
Yeah, thank God. This Mercury, it seems like it really didn't have an impact until we saw it actually combust the Sun. And when the two kind of collided in that process of Mercury going retrograde and the Sun continuing to advance through Aquarius, it was kind of interesting because on that exact day I had a half a dozen people call and say, "Oh, is Mercury retrograde? What happened? My car broke down, my computer died, this happened, that happened." So it's fascinating to watch the effects of the solar activity in relationship to everything else in the chart, because the Sun is that life force connection, and it is the activator for all of the different elements in the heavens. So when we see the Sun be in that kind of confrontational, collisionary kind of energy, it really does cause a lot of things to go haywire. So now we're beginning to understand, I think, more completely how that effect of Mercury in its retrograde position can manifest abruptly, and at the same time it causes you to stop and do some damage control and fix things that you probably should have been paying attention to in the first place.
Yeah, Mercury in Aquarius is all about looking at every angle, you know, looking, especially if you have a broken, you know, piece of machinery, you know, and you have to get up in there and look around the corner and put your finger around it and try and see if that's the right angle to fix it. In our lives, we've looked at every angle so weird that it almost is like a kink in your neck when you're looking, because our minds are trying to figure so many things out. But Mercury stationary and coming direct is finally this relief, and I think finally we found the angle and we can go about our lives with that certain angle. And then on top of that, this Jupiter energy, as it trines over to this new moon in Pisces, it's stationary, it's dead stopped. And now we have two of the planets dealing with our intellect, our mind, our outlook of things, dead stopped. And even though this is a wonderful moment I think we're coming into, this is definitely going to be a big shift in our lives. And I think we have to pay attention to going with the flow. This is what a new moon in Pisces is. And to see a new moon, which signals what the month will be like, to have Jupiter on the horizon with this beautiful trine, it really signals that it's time for us to open up, see bigger. It's time to, there's a big lesson this month. There's new doors that are opening. And we have an angle that I think we've looked at so differently to work with now.
Exactly. And in addition to that, we've got uh, the energy of Neptune being factored in now, and the energy of Chiron. So we've got, that very sensitive stellium in Pisces. And I think a lot of people are going to be feeling kind of hypersensitive to the environments they're in, to the people they're in connection with. So it may be a weekend where a lot of people uh, feel deeper emotional and intuitive flashes, and a lot of people I think are going to be noticing some really powerful dreams with some symbols that are all about what are you planning for, where are you heading with your life, what's coming up next. So that Neptunian factor is definitely going to have a very prevalent presence in this whole cycle through the weekend.
Yeah, it's very deep. It's very on the other side. You're having to search really far, and the intellect energy is definitely on a standstill, which can make things really confusing, can make it very difficult to understand what the hell is going on, even though I think there's this internal knowing inside. I've been saying it in my daily horoscopes that we're just having to direct the bow of our ship, and the universe is going to bring the wind and pull us in that direction. And I think we understand where to direct our lives. This is also the weekend where we're going to have a lot of other things happen. We have Mars going retrograde the day following. We have Mercury go direct. We have a new moon trining Jupiter. And I think this Mars retrograde, which is going to last all the way until April or May 20th, pardon me, is a big one. It's happening in Libra. It's happening where the North Node is coming into. And that's very interesting because, the North Node here really wants us to focus on this Libra story now, focus on harmony, focus on balance. And it's dealing with Mars here, which is, a very Aries energy in Libra, kind of looking after itself first in relationships. And it's also how, Mars is the warrior. And, I think there's a lot of our warrior side, our ego side, that has to really be retreated in relationships. And I think the universe is wanting us to find the right partnerships now. And that's kind of the times now that we can't do things alone. Now that that South Node is in Aries, we have to do things together. And we need to find togetherness. We need to find people that align with us correctly. And we also just need to look at how we use our masculine energy more efficiently, more intellectually. This is a very intellectual sign. And there's a lot of weighing out to do. And when Mars goes retrograde, we need to rejuice our masculine side. We need to retreat the troops, to make sure that we don't lose them all. And in our lives, I think we've expanded to such a great point that now we need to reflect on it and kind of take a step back and see where we can barge that energy anew in the coming months.
Yeah, it's definitely a period of consolidation, and I think a lot of men are going to feel like they've kind of hit a peak, and they're ready to take a time out. They're ready to get some downtime and to reach out to feminine energy for support and nurturing. So this actually could be very good for relationships. It could be very good for creating a new connectivity to the inner feminine, as well as to feminine elements in our surroundings. So it does have a lot of positive influence that it can exert, even though it is in fact going retrograde. And then in addition to everything else that's going on, this week we have a very tight square going on between Jupiter and Uranus. And so, thank God Pluto is advanced far enough so it's not quite as intensely connected to that square energy. It does still fill out a T-square, but we're not going to see that harshness, I think, of the combination of Pluto and Uranus being reflected through the Jupiter area. I think that what we're going to see is that Uranian energy being channeled down to Jupiter and then springboarding back into that Sun and Neptune configuration. And I think that's going to be the release point when we go into spirit, when we go into meditation, when we start to plumb the depths, as you had said. That's when we're going to find the answer. It's going to arrive very suddenly. It's going to be from an alternative source. And that's what Uranus likes to do. It likes to make us look at things from an entirely different angle and present us with new options and new opportunities. And sometimes that comes in a stressful environment. Other times it's more benign. But I think that a lot of people are going to get kind of a big awakening from the activity of that Sun-Moon conjunction firing off with that tight square of Uranus to Pluto, and then, that tight square of Uranus to Jupiter, and then Pluto factoring in also. So a lot of very dynamic energy is really bubbling up to the surface.
Yeah, and that Mars retrograde now is going to retrograde back to join this big T-square and form a cardinal cross by next month, well, pretty much in April. So here we are looking at the events of a big cross in the sky going to start directing its way into that cross starting by this weekend. So even though Mars won't be there, it's a signal from the universe of, well, it's preparing for some really big shifts in this Mars retrograde, because it will be involved with that Jupiter-Uranus square you talk about, which is trying to expand our emotions, but at the same time find our own inner self, our own identification, our own strengths, our own, courage. And these are also dealing with that Pluto energy, that, redefining the rules, taking the layers deeper and deeper and deeper of Pluto, and how deep you take things to go into the structure of your life that you set yourself up to manifest, and the control system of ourselves, and how control and ego and relationships and emotions are all battling themselves out, which can be it can be very difficult. And Venus this weekend, as it's coming out of Capricorn, gets out of its shadow period this week. And then we'll jump into Aquarius. And finally, Venus gets the hell out of a 3-month cycle in Capricorn, which it's happy for. And I think Venus coming out of Aquarius is going to be the kind of, oh my God, okay, we are definitely in a new energy. So I definitely feel by, Wednesday, when Venus is on its way out. And this is also going to be funny because I forgot to mention, Sunday, Saturn goes retrograde, which, there's the whole other part of this, is now Saturn, the planet that's been really trying to get us into our truth, redefine what truth is, look at boundaries in our life, is retrograding. There's a lot to review there. And Saturn retrogrades are kind of a relief, I'd say. They kind of go, okay, it's like the slave being really hard at work and needing a break finally. It's like, beep, break time, from so much work and so much work emotionally. And then, then we have the Venus come out. So I definitely think as we kind of come out of this weekend and start this week, we're going to feel, I think, especially as we come midweek in and Venus switches signs, like you are like, wow, it could feel like the universe is stopping, because when you see Saturn stop in retrograde, Mercury stop, go direct, Mars stop, go retrograde, Jupiter is stopped, getting ready to go direct, which happens pretty much the day that Venus comes, it does happen the day Venus does come into Aquarius on that Wednesday. So it can feel like, what is going on here? It's almost like you enter the spaceship and then it's a little uncomfortable as you kind of get into it, but then it's like eventually midweek, boom, I think there's a huge blast off, kind of like when the afterburners kick in Star Wars, when they go light speed, like beep, like we get a huge kick in midweek.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And the thing that's going to be interesting is that as all of this activity is starting to really define itself, clarify itself, we are going to have that advance of Mercury coming up to a point where it's going to exactly square Saturn. Saturn at that point will be retrograde. And my impression of that particular blip on the radar screen is that there's going to be communication that's very revelatory. All of a sudden, things are going to be revealed to people that they have been wondering about, that they have felt, there was an obscurification, there was a veil over some element in their life. So there's going to be an interesting midweek blip as we see that Mercury-Saturn interaction, and it's going to pull a lot of hidden issues, I think, to the surface that we'll want to talk about, that we'll want to communicate about.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to look at this whole thing, is there's a big revealing, which is the future. It's like we've been plugging in our coordinates to this future that we didn't know what it was going to look like for so long, and finally this is a big revealing, and the mental energy comes back, the understanding comes back, the intuitive energy kind of turns back on, and it is Mars and Saturn, which is this energy that always wants to accomplish and go, which kind of retreats here, and it allows more of the visions to come up now. It allows more of the invisible energy to come up. It allows our mind to catch up. And I think that this is a chill period now of things coming together and moving forward, even though, you know, Mars is retrograding and we have Saturn retrograding, which you would think typically in astrology is, oh, okay, you've made it this far, now reflect. I see this as a big door opening in worlds that we've never gone into before, and I think beautiful energy now being looked at in the planet in ways it hasn't for so long. This is a rare period to step into, very unique, and I think that we're going to start to see the world come together more, and I think some powerful stories are going to start to come out starting this week. It's been a long time since there's been any. I think people have been asleep. In many ways, this is almost like all of us waking back up, because I think we've been tired. We started the year with a new moon in Capricorn. We're working our butts off. We're all like, you know, on the trail. And I think that the universe really brings this nice break in order to kind of get things together again.
Oh, it definitely does. One of the interesting things that, you know, when we have a huge cluster, like what's going on in Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces right now, is we look across the chart to Leos, and a lot of Leos, I think, are feeling kind of a frenetic energy, because what's occurring with this? Well, you've got an inconjunct activity zone going on with Pisces, and you've got another inconjunct activity zone going on with Capricorn. So you know that you should be getting things finished, you should be getting things resolved, but those inconjunctions keep you from making that final commitment, or keep you from doing that final nailing down of the lid on this little box of whatever it is that you're working on in your life. And it forces us to go across to the opposite side. And I'm observing that with a lot of my Leo friends right now. They're taking on a lot of Aquarian attributes. And when they go over to the Aquarius side of their chart, they can then relate to a lot of this kind of conundrum type of energy, because you've got activity in Capricorn, you've got activity in Pisces, and they're both kind of hovering around that Aquarian zone. So for people who are following what we're doing here, always look to the opposite side of your chart, see what the activity is there, because that gives you kind of an aha experience. That opens up an area that you're probably not paying attention to, and you need to put a focus on that. It's not necessarily about the placement in your chart, but it's the activity that's happening on the opposite side of the chart that can really bring you to a much higher level than what you've been operating at. So for Leos right now, this is an interesting time, because it's like being ready for the launch. I mean, you're sitting inside the spaceship and the engines are on, and you're ready to take off.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting thing, I think, especially for Cancers and the water signs, because now Jupiter is going to go direct and it's going to move forward. But here is, you know, Mars in Libra retrograde, which this is just, you know, as an astrologer, this is a very, you know, I would say difficult time, even in prediction ways, because you've got so many different angles, and I think in all of our life it can be very difficult to figure out every angle, and that's what this retrograde's been about. That's what this week is about, is taking us on a whole different page. I mean, we thought we were going to turn the page when we were going to kind of know what we were reading. I think that after this week we're like, holy crap, this is what I'm reading now. You know, it's almost like the universe switches magazines when you just take a blink of an eye in your lap. Like, what? And it could be difficult to kind of understand all that. And I think the water signs are all ready to expand their lives and grow. I think the fire signs are in their preparations for this coming summer and into next year, when we have planets like Saturn, which are going to come into Sagittarius at the end of this year, Jupiter coming into Leo. You know, and I think that there's this energy of a big prep for all of us. It doesn't matter if you're a Leo or a Scorpio. You know, I think that in all of us, this is the incubation tube that really gets the real powerful stuff together. You know, I think that we've been wanting these things to come together, but here it is, you know, this is the energy that kind of does. And I want to bring up one more transit that's really powerful. Black Moon Lilith comes into Leo this week. And Black Moon Lilith actually has been squaring the node, and it also has been squaring Mars retrograde, and it's been also, you know, making its energy up to this Venus Capricorn all funky dunky. So you have to see that it's this really intense time underneath of all of us, and a kind of time where you can feel like you're awake, but are you asleep? This is Pisces at its best, with Sun crossing over Neptune before all this. It is, you know, you really have to work right now to understand what's going on, which direction to go, and stay on top of it. People who are on drugs or are falling asleep at the wheel in their life are getting huge wake-up calls, because this is a time that is really trying to wake you up to get prepared for your life, to take it in a new direction, and it's powerful. It's definitely not. This is definitely not a time of just kind of slipping through the cracks or going by, you know?
Oh, very much so. And the black moon cycles, from my observation, they're very subtle, but they are a process of self-undoing. And so you really have to pay attention to it in that sense. What am I doing here that is causing all these different activities in my life to get into that stage of early launch and then imploding? And if you look at the hidden agendas, if you look at those subtle areas, this squaring activity of that moon movement in that darkened place, it's your own inner programs that are running that you still haven't identified and released. So this is very much a period where those deeper retreats into meditation can be very beneficial, because when we have a square activity going on with Lilith, we do have those images that are being forced to the surface. It's a purging kind of energy. So yeah, this could be a very powerful time for finding out exactly what it is that you have unconsciously set into motion to defeat all the things that you're trying to accomplish in any particular cycle. So again, it's very important to pay attention to these things, because they do give us insight as to the subconscious and its frustration, I guess you could say. I see Lilith as being a zone of inner frustration.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's deep down emotional, you know, the bottom of the depths. It's got a very kind of Scorpio tone to it, but I would say it's got more of that more feminine side, you know, that sometimes is suppressed, the emotions that's suppressed. And now that it moves out of Cancer and moves into Leo, I mean, it's almost too emotional, I think, in Cancer. I think a Black Moon Lilith in Cancer can be a little bit, you know, a little bit like, oh gosh, I don't feel right. Where in Leo now, it's like, I'm not happy, you know, I'm not happy, and I want to know why I'm not happy, and I want to take care of business so I get happy again. And this whole process is about getting us happy, and that's going to be what the universe is kind of signaling. I mean, I look at Jupiter, in my opinion, when it comes into a sign, this is an area that needs, like, you know, rejuicing extremely, like refueling. And, you know, our emotions definitely needed this. I think that we went through so much turmoil of the last 2000s in the decade, and stretching us, and then we need to kind of find comfort again. I think we're all being able to find laziness pretty easy now, I'll tell you that. Like, it's not hard to be lazy, even though we can work our butts off. There's parts of ourselves right now that have no problem trying to take a load off and want to connect more with our families. And I think the family unit's getting stronger through this Jupiter in Cancer now, that we're appreciating our families now. We're appreciating our roots more. But it is Leo, which I think is going to be the signal of this Black Moon Lilith coming in. That's where the universe is pushing it, which is happiness. We want happiness on the planet now. We want people to be happy again. And it will be, I think, this next 4 month to 5 month period until Jupiter comes into Leo, that is going to be us getting our emotions right, us changing our lives, us looking at the partnerships, us looking at the ways we change our world, that I think this little incubator we're stepping into is going to make some of the biggest changes ever, not only individually in our lives, but the world. I think that this is God's way of really allowing us an opportunity to make the changes in our life that we must make.
Exactly, and redefining our nest for us. You know, we all carry that sense of home within us, and that's the area that we go to for nurturing when we get beat up by circumstances. And we retreat to that region within ourselves that we have defined as being the home. And having Jupiter in there has been kind of balming, I think, for a lot of people. It has given you succor. It has given you nurturing. And so now, as it advances and eventually does move into Leo, then it's going to say, okay, get your ass out in the world and do something. You know, step onto the stage, sing your song, because your time has arrived.
It is your time. And even though we can be so stretched, you know, we get an opportunity. What I've been calling is getting into the back seat of the car, letting God drive, and allowing us to do what we need to do, adjust. I think Mars in Libra retrograde is an opportunity to sculpt the beauty of your life in a way that you never get to sculpt. You know, this is allowing you to, instead of push up, push down. It's almost like we always can go, you know, with the grain. This allows us to go against the grain and cut out things that are not good for our harmony, and cut out relationships correctly, and allow us to really, you know, rebalance our lives in ways we've never been able to for decades. You know, it's been a long time since Mars retrograded in Libra. You know, it's not been, you know, 5 years, 6 years. I mean, we're talking about decades here.
Exactly, and I think there is going to be a certain amount of almost like a mild panic in larger areas of our society, like the banking industry and mainstream commercial activities and political activities, and even in religious groups, when this retrograde occurs, because Libra is about collective consciousness, about crowds, about relationships. It is going to cause some dysfunction, I think, initially, because it's going to point out where organizations within society are not functioning properly and not in alignment with the rest of the universe's desires and needs. So it is going to be a very pivotal period, and there probably will be some major occurrences that come along with this retrograde that do cause deeper change within our political system, deeper change within our religious systems, that sort of thing.
And before we go to the cards, I just want to say that I think you're right, that I think the world is going to be woken up here pretty intensely, because it's almost like the world's gone so personal in our individual stories so much. You know, even though we're so connected, and we're more connected than we've ever been, it's almost like people are kind of, you know, going inside more, which you'd think. You know, I think a lot of people always say, oh, you're always on the internet, or you're always, you know, I think a lot of people are, you know, they might have their outlet, they might have their addiction to connecting to the world, but they're all dealing with so much stuff inside, you know. And I think that we're all going to kind of find a way to come together now correctly. I think that maybe humanity is a little confused on how to connect, even though we know how to connect from a mobile phone into a bathroom to a bathroom. But what to do with this connection, you know, is I think what this period will start to unveil, because I think maybe the universe wants to kick us into gear to give us a reason why to kick things into gear. I mean, if you see the weather patterns right now, if you see there's so many things that are, you know, going to force humanity to kind of figure something out. And, you know, I think we're all being forced to find out what that is here in the next, you know, couple months. And the moon, you know, after it leaves Pisces, comes through Aries and into Taurus this week, and I think that's a good place for the moon to come. It really does add to more of a fresh beginning, and I think we're about to feel a really fresh start. So I'd love to see what the cards say.
Well, cards are being very liberal tonight. Kind of an interesting spread coming up. We start off with that Friday-Saturday movement. We have the Chariot. And of course, the Chariot is one of the cards that we associate with the sign of Cancer, mobility, movement, and as you can see, we've got the two steeds, the two horses, pulling the Chariot forward, but one is pulling off to the left, the other is pulling off to the right. And so even though certain elements this weekend may seem to be trying to exert separation, I think that within that exertion of that separation energy, there is still forward momentum being gained. So this is very much a Jupiter in Cancer weekend. It's all about how Jupiter is tying in to all the activity going on in Pisces and with that Neptunian factor at play. Then as we continue through the weekend, a lot of vitality, Ace of Rods. So people are going to be feeling restless, like they want to get out and do things, explore new environments. I think there's going to be a lot of this kind of seed planting energy that comes up. You know, when you have a new moon, it's like the fish are biting, the seeds want to sprout. It's that growth surge that kind of plays out in the universe. I think as we move into Monday, though, there's going to be, interestingly enough, kind of a little, you know, a sudden shift into, oh, I need to be a little bit conservative here. I may be getting too wild with my vision of what I want to accomplish, with the direction I want to go. And you can see this fellow is somewhat stern. So going back and factoring in traditional values, things that make society work for all of us, is probably going to be the big theme for the day on Monday. A little bit of melancholy around that. It's like after this new moon surge, there's going to be almost like a letdown. And then as we start to move forward into the week, we have the Lovers come up. And that is the attraction of opposites. And we're really going to see that playing out this week. We're going to see where a lot of people recognize that the opposite to who they are or what they identify themselves as being is going to become much more attractive. And you're going to want to work on reconciliation. You're going to work on magnetizing things into your life that you've been desiring. And by the end of the week, we have the Hermit come up. And that is the need to share the illumination, to share your story with those around you. So by the end of this coming week, we're going to really be feeling like a lot of people have been able to bring a source of light and love and nurturing into dark areas of their lives and into the lives of people around them who are perhaps not as in flow with all of this new energy that's going to be coming into place. So a lot of sharing energy, I think, is going to be coming up for all of us as we move through this coming week.
I'm so glad you pulled the Chariot card as the first card. I look at that as the overall, the first card. And the Chariot is leaving the castle and on a spiritual journey. And I think for all of us, we're leaving that environment and going out there. You know, one thing about the Chariot is, like you said, it's pulled by these horses, or in the original Rider-Waite, two Sphinx, you know, the Egyptian Sphinx, the black and the white one, this spiritual kind of like, especially because those are like unicorns in your deck, it's a mystical kind of pull from the universe. Like, we're all being pulled into a direction, and we got to leave where we all were. Like, you know, it's exciting, and I think one thing about the Chariot is it's finding new comfort in that, and I think that's the sign of Jupiter this week, really leaving this this stationary position and going direct and moving out. And you know, it's time for us to explore these emotions. It's time to explore new foundations, new roots in our life. And then that Ace of Wands is so good about it's new beginnings again, new fire, new starting, new start, new day, new actions. Let's go. And then I love that you pulled a Lover's card, because Venus coming out of its long retrograde for 3 months and in Capricorn and coming into Aquarius really is like the people are going to be there. I think there's going to be, you know, the buzzing, like, you know, when you go to a new place, like whether you were a kid and you went to like a, you know, like a field trip, or you know, you move into a new place, you want to meet the new people, like that kind of feeling, I think, will come around.
It absolutely will, and I think there's going to be a lot more inner reconciliation to the parts within, our own masculine, feminine energies, our own dark side and bright, sunny side. All of these things we've always been working on bringing them together rather than defeating one side or the other. Really, the whole thing is to merge all of these energies and realize that through that merging process, we attain completeness because we're not denying some part of ourselves, we're not trying to escape from some part of ourselves, but we're embracing all these different factors within us and bringing them into harmony. So, very powerful week for people.
Yeah, and your birthday's through all this. I want to wish you such an amazing birthday, Christopher. You've been a big aspect in my life and everybody's life here that watches this show. And, I know I could speak for all of them that we do wish you the most amazing birthday ever. And you get it this year. You've got Jupiter trining the sun. What a year. And I think it's important because I think we all get to see how much you're going to teach us this year and how much you're even going to grow. And I can't wait to watch that.
Well, thank you, David. I'm looking forward to teaching myself in the midst of all this because Neptune is continuing to advance and it's going to get up fairly close to my sun before it retreats again. So with that Neptunian factor coming into this positioning of Jupiter, I do expect to get some bigger visions that might actually have a profound impact on the lives of people that I am interactive with. So here's to a grand year of healing and rejuvenation for all of us.
And we got to say that's what Chiron is on this new moon that starts. There's a lot of deep healing and there's a lot of surrender to happen. But I think you have to have a vision for the surrender to go into something. And I think that's the ticket to this week is remember we're being pulled into a new direction, and it's not that you have control of the reins, but you do have control of the direction by emotionally knowing where you're intuitively steering the ship in the right direction.
And by being willing to accept, a lot of times the old school of spirituality and of religion taught us that God would punish us in order to make us better, and I don't particularly ascribe to that vision. I think that God is always giving us something magical and wondrous, and we're the ones who are resistant to accepting it. So now we're at another plateau here where perhaps our level of acceptance is going to be taken to a higher plateau, and we can accept all the beautiful things Spirit is bringing to us.
Yeah, and I think prayer or meditation for this new moon is an essential. I think if there's any time in your life right now to reconnect with the other side, whether you call it God, Jesus, Buddha, everything, I think that this is a new contract with that energy. And like you said, it's always magical. It's always leading us into something good. But I think it's important to know and connect with that magic more than ever.
Absolutely a fact. Well, David, you hopefully will be dancing in the rain in the next 24 hours, so that's the magic that's moving in off the California coast, right?
Yes, it is. It's going to be a lot of magic, and I'm glad to hear that your guys are drying up, or at least, getting a little bit warmer. So I look forward to speaking with you next week, and I thank you so much for everything, Christopher. This has been an excellent, excellent, excellent show, and I think it really showed everybody, how magical this period is, and it's exciting, but I think that it's a lot to take in, and I think we delivered that message without getting too it's a lot. You really have to take the time to really see this transition because it's a big one.
It is profound. Well, thank you, David, for a wonderful year of fascinating and exciting dialogue, and I think we've both grown immensely in the last 12 months.
Oh yeah, I think this show has grown us a lot, and thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful birthday, Chris, and I'll see you next week.
Yes, and enjoy the Oscars too.
Oh yes, I will be there.
Right.
Already right now in front of my house, because I live on Hollywood Boulevard right by Mann's Chinese Theater, there's all the tents up. They've already locked it down, and it's pretty intense.
Should be a grand evening.
Yeah, check the tube. You never know. You might see me.
Ah, I will do that.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you soon, and I'll see you next week.
Sounds great. Take care.